Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending where in the world you are. I'm Lisa Berkeley, and this is Reaction to Response, an opportunity to hear from thought leaders who are helping us shift from fear-based reaction to care and compassionate-based responses. As many of you may know, we were birthed through the Charter for Compassion's Women and Girls sector, and we have over 400 cities with 1,800 partners in 52 countries around the world that are divided into 12 sectors looking to spread compassion at various levels of society. Today's guest is Natalie Wynn Pace, and we are going to be continuing our conversation of this month's theme around protecting yourself from a predatory economy. So before we go into further introductions, I just want to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. First, this call is being recorded. Second, if you have any tech issues, you can go to zoom.us. And of course, if you have any questions for Natalie or would like to make any comments in this conversation, you can type them on your chat box, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. Or you can go to the bottom and hover around your controls and you'll see pop up for question and answers. Also, I'd like to just take a second to thank everyone working behind the scenes: Sandy Hart, Brianna Lathorpe, Susan DeGaia, and Betsy Spano. So, as many of you also know, before I introduce our guest, though, I'm also going to put the information on the screen now about our after party, which is where we're going to switch to a different platform, and you can join Natalie in an interactive conversation through video. You can also phone in live. The information is on the screen in front of you. And if you are participating right now in this call, the URL is in the chat box. So before we get into discussing the next part of our conversation, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Natalie. And Natalie is the co-creator of the Earth Gratitude Project. She's also the best-selling author and teacher of The Gratitude Game, The ABCs of Money, and Put Your Money Where Your Heart Is. She's also a blogger on Medium, Blog Talk Radio, and Huffington Post. You can learn more about her at nataliepace.com. As we mentioned, today's call is about protecting yourself from a predatory economy. And predatory economy is a term that Natalie has coined and is going to share with us the details of what that means and also how you can protect yourself from it. As many of you also know, we discuss the UN sustainability goals and how the topic we're discussing relates to these. So on your screen now are the goals, and I think you can see a little image of Natalie, who you'll see in larger form in a few minutes after we get into a bit of discussion. So first, let me say thank you and welcome, Natalie.
Hi, nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. So can you share with us how a predatory economy relates to the UN goals? And actually, you know what, I'm gonna do a little bit of a shift here. I'm gonna go back to full screen for a minute so people can see you. And let's first talk about what a predatory economy is.
I think that's a good start. So there's a number of things that I think people need to be aware of. The first thing is that almost everything that we buy in life is sold to us by a salesman. So a couple of examples, like when I got married, I married a guy from Hong Kong, so he was Chinese. And one of the first times that I went to Chinatown, his mother was there and she loved to cook, and she said, "Go buy a fish." And she didn't tell me what kind of fish to buy. And, you know, I know she's very particular. And so I thought, oh, I'll just ask the guy behind the counter. And the guy behind the counter actually was someone who, you know, wanted to impress his boss. And so instead of telling me the kind of fish that he thought my mother-in-law would actually really like, he held up the biggest fish he could find and said, "You should buy this one," right? You know, if you go to buy a car, you know, they're not looking at your budget. The salesman really wants to sell you the most expensive car he or she can because there's dollar signs there. It's like, oh, great, I might be able to take my kids to Disneyland this month or something like that. In the worst case example of this, we saw it right before the Great Recession. We saw those of us that are on financial services and financial literacy side, of which I'm financial literacy, we saw people that were pulling money out of their home where they were using their home equity as an ATM. So, they would get into trouble. They really didn't have a budget that was sustainable for them. And they would go to the bank to figure out how to fix this problem. And the mortgage broker would say, hey, well, why don't you just borrow money against your home, right? They're not looking at your overall picture, your budget, your ability to pay it back. Although, of course, they're looking at FICO score and debt to assets ratio and that sort of thing. But, if your budget is out of whack and you're going to become property rich, cash poor, that's still going to be a problem for you. So we saw that people, in fact, in the worst case scenarios, we saw that there were mortgage brokers and there were real estate brokers that were colluding together to get people to say, hey, if you buy this house in 5 or 6 months, we'll help you sell it and you'll make $40,000, right? And just sign here. And so they were called liar's loans. Just sign here and say that you're really going to live there, even if you're not, and don't worry about it because we'll sell it for you. So all of these things were happening based on people wanting to just make more money for themselves. So I think that's something that we all need to be aware of, that in today's world, especially when we're talking about Charter for Compassion and all the goals that you guys have, that we want to make sure that we're not part of the problem. And it's very easy to be a spiritual person and to be part of the problem, particularly if you're in a profession that rewards you or compensates you if you sell somebody more. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's just as you're speaking, I'm just my heart is just sort of in pain from it because it's so exploitative, or to use your term, predatory. And most people go so innocently into whatever it is, whether it's you're trying to impress your mother-in-law and start a new life, or you're trying to help your family or just get forward. And how do we enter into this with pretty much any kind of transaction and not be exploited,
or be the person exploiting? And that's the thing too. I think that's where compassion can really be a different conversation, because a lot of times when we talk about compassion and creating more compassion and peace in the world, we're always thinking we're going to fix other people. And, there's a Tibetan saying that I've heard the Dalai Lama say a few times, where they say, a sore in the mouth must be fixed in the mouth. So before we go out and fix the world or fix our neighbors, we really should start fixing and cleaning our own home,
Mm-hmm.
And as we do that, and I always say, look, once you become the light, every room you enter gets lighter. So I think that it's a really good idea to make sure that we start with ourselves. And it's not easy because, and you and I talked about this, you had asked me, like, how did I do this at one point? And if it's okay, I'll go ahead and tell that story.
Absolutely. And I just want to put one pause. And so, yes, you and I talked about this in preparation for this call, but also in July, you were our guest, a guest for the first time with us, speaking about how to get your voice out in the world. And so that sort of speaks to what you're saying too. And please share how you overcame your
Yes.
challenging times. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, and again, a lot of people say, well, gosh, how did you create this life that you love so much? And I think you can see just from the smile on my face that I really love my life. And it is a process of getting there, because a lot of us are not loving our lives, but we maybe are providing for a family, or we're trying to make ends meet, or we're trying to get ahead, or we're paying the mortgage. We're just trying not to be on the street. That's not living the life of your dreams or the life you love. But I think that a lot of the things that I am able to enjoy right now, it was a process. It was a step towards this. And one of the biggest steps I took, which I think is right in alignment with this predatory economy idea. So I was a singer-songwriter, and you don't make much money at that, even in Los Angeles. Like, you might sell a song and that pays the rent for a couple months, and then you're back to, living on the street unless you have a more steady income. So I would work during the day as a salesman. I would sell corporate health insurance. And what was happening at that time, it was a while ago, was that it was right when AIDS was becoming a big deal. So there were a few diagnoses that could really make your corporate health insurance super expensive. And what our company was doing is they were releasing, a lot of the salespeople, they were releasing the medical records to the company so the company would know who was sick and they would fire them so that their medical insurance costs would not increase when they were renewed. And I had gone to the upper level management, even to the president, written a letter to the president, and basically I was put into hot water for being the whistleblower. And I had a choice at that point to zip it and, got kind of toe the line and get more in line with what the company was doing and be able to provide for myself, or quit. And that was the choice. It was either zip it or quit. And so I quit, and I had to go sleep on a friend's couch for about a month until I found another job. But and it was scary, because you always think when you do something that bold, and I don't necessarily recommend that you try to do it that boldly, but if you think you are completely out of alignment with what you're doing for a living, and it's really not helping you, and it's not helping the world. You might think it's helping you because it's helping you to pay your rent. But if you're kind of justifying that, I'm doing something that I think is harmful to people or harmful to the world in order so that I'm okay, that's not living in alignment with your charter for compassion goals.
Right. And that's so true. And, you're reminding me also as a woman, because this is through the women and girls lens, I'm always kind of looking a little bit about that. So I'm just, as a woman, you've just exhibited huge courage, because already the system is in some ways stacked against you, or has been previously. It's beginning, thank goodness, to change historically.
It's completely changed.
Yeah.
It has completely changed. It's changed so much that we're now wondering if we need to rescue our young men. The young millennial women make more than their husbands and boyfriends as a group. They're graduating from college and graduate school in greater percentages than guys are. So it has absolutely changed. This is the first time in American history when younger women are making more than their dates and their husbands. And women in America now hold more wealth than men. This is the first time just this year that happened. So the whole thing is different than it's ever been in the history of the U.S. And that's true, to a large extent. We still have countries in the world where women aren't even allowed to work. So, it is interesting how that continuum is, where there's women that are horribly discriminated against, aren't allowed to work, where even perhaps domestic violence is either not against the law or certainly not prosecuted compared to America, where women now hold more wealth.
Mm-hmm. So I want to continue with the predatory economy to delve into it a little bit more, but you've also sort of piqued my curiosity. In the work that you do around financial consulting, advising, etc., do you see a difference in how women or men approach the subject?
It's interesting because I always said that I targeted women, but I would open up my services to men. Early on, I had the Women's Investment Network, and I was just trying to financially empower women, give them financial education, help them learn how to invest, money while you sleep, which is the way to get wealthy. It's not just earning income. In fact, you get taxed on a far lower basis if you do passive income. So, but what I found right away was that men wanted the information too. So what I would say, more than differences in gender approach to money, is that everyone is undereducated on life math. Everyone. I have about 40% or more. In fact, at my retreat this coming up in October, 4 out of 6 of my volunteers, and my volunteers are people who have been to a retreat more than twice, 4 out of 6 of them are men.
Wow.
So what I mean to say is that we all did not receive the ABCs of money that we should have received in high school. We all don't have life math. And that's why, we're so heavily indebted. That's why we go out, our kids are coming out of college, not able to get the job they want, and with these horrible crushing college debt. That's why most of our budgets aren't adding up. And that's why we're also riding the Wall Street roller coaster. You and I talked about this as well. The last 2 times that we went 8 years without a correction in stocks, most people lost more than half of their net worth. Last recession, more than 7 million people lost their homes. Again, if you have financial literacy and financial wisdom, the Thrive budget, my easy as a pie chart nest egg strategies, you earn gains in the recession, you are in a sustainable budget, and you can actually save thousands of dollars every year without a change in lifestyle. It is not about cutting out fun and cafe lattes. It's stop making the billionaires and the big corporations rich at your own expense, which is, again, part of this whole predatory economy. You know, like if you just get a job and then you buy a house and then you turn on the lights and you buy a car and you put gas in that car, your life will not add up and you're going to have to put food on credit cards. And that's where a lot of people are. And on the other hand, if you rethink everything differently, you could have a great life like I do. And you could be saving thousands of dollars every year in your annual budget, which means that you could have more bucket list vacations, a lot more fun, and provide far better for your future. And the difference is that wisdom is the cure. It's not just flying by the seat of your pants and doing what the conventional wisdom says, because in today's world, when the US is 20 trillion in debt, when the American consumer is in more debt today than they were before the Great Recession, this is a big issue. There's too much debt in the world, not just in the public debt, but in private debt too. So wisdom is the cure.
You know, it's interesting because you're touching on so many personal topics. When I say personal, human topics, right? So
Yeah.
people's fear, around, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have enough, or not only am I not going to have enough, but I'm so in debt, and that feeling of being in deficit is
Yeah.
such a disempowering motivation to go through the world. And you're
Yes.
reminding me, I spoke once with a financial planner and I said, okay, I want to start to invest money into my future. And she said, well, how much debt do you have? And then she was comparing interest rates on a loan versus how much money I would, how much income I would
Yeah.
receive from investing. And she said, I'm not I would be out of integrity if I encouraged you to start to save money or to pay yourself first, because you will be losing money in relationship to how much debt and the interest rate on the credit cards. And so,
Yeah, so let me just say a couple of things. Most of our financial planners are hired as salesmen. They are not really great at life math and all of these things. So the truth of the matter is that she's not including compounding debt. She's not including the fact that if you don't provide for your own future, nobody's going to take up a collection to do it for you. She's also putting money into your own tax-protected retirement accounts is tax deductible. So that's not another bill. That's money that you don't pay the taxman. So that's one of the biggest myths out there, is that you should pay down your debt and then start saving. The truth is you should start saving. And the biggest reason that you have debt is because your budget is not sustainable. So you have to get a better budget, and you need to address the debt. And absolutely, you want to have a lower interest rate on your debt, but there are many ways to do that. And it should never be stop saving and investing. And in fact, it's not just saving, it's investing. If you put 10% of your income into a tax-protected retirement account, and that earns a 10% gain, you have more money than you earn within 7 years, and your money makes more than you do within 25 years. Most people, that means that if you're 40 today, you better be doing that, because you want to be able for your money to make more money than you do when you retire. Otherwise, you're in trouble. So that's, again, there's so many myths out there. The other one is cut out cafe lattes or cut out avocado toast, and you can have a budget that balances. That is not it might help a little bit, but the real problems here are the big ticket items. It's housing, it's debt, which we need to get a better control of. It's food, it's transportation. The average person spends $8,000 a year on everything car. insurance, transportation, the car payment itself, and gasoline.
Hmm.
So you can rethink all of these things and live a much richer life. Health savings accounts as opposed to a high health insurance bill. There's many ways that you can stop making everybody else rich at your own expense, live a richer life, provide far better for tomorrow, have more bucket list vacations, and shatter all the myths out there that are keeping you indebted and poor.
Mhm.
If you never save, if you never have that discipline for saving and investing, you have debt consciousness.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
person that advised you has debt consciousness. They don't have wisdom, they have debt consciousness. And that's what I think a lot of people need to realize is that you don't, the difference here is that you don't go into a car dealership and think that that person is an absolute genius about cars. You know that they're a car salesman. But it's different when you go to a financial planner. Most of them are not they're not trained in economics. In fact, if you had your degree in economics and you weren't at all a good salesman and had no experience selling, you could not get a job as a certified financial planner.
Wow. Wow, and that's so disempowering because as I'm listening to you, I'm just saying, wow, the entire system is built. I mean, as if somebody wants to become more literate, where do they go? A financial planner or financial advisor. And to your point, they're all on a deficit or predatory lens, and they may not even be
I
me.
wouldn't say all, but what I would say is that in the brokerage industry as a whole is shifting, but not fast enough.
Mhm.
And most of the old school brokerages still have a lot of salesmen paid on commission. And even the new school brokerages have other products that they try to sell you to. So it's like anything. I mean, I go to get my underarms waxed, and she tries to tell me I need to wax my nose hair too for health benefits, which is a complete lie. So I'm just telling you, there is you go. We talked about this too. You go to a restaurant to eat,
Mhm.
and the waiter has to ask you if you want another drink and would you like dessert. They have to try to sell you more.
Mhm.
So everywhere we go in today's world, everybody has been trained on, all of every level. They've been trained to upsell you.
I'm just sort of letting that sink in for a minute because ever
Yeah.
since our initial conversation, I've started looking through the lens of who's trying to sell me what. And it really is amazing. And it's not malintentioned very often. It's to your point of, again, like the salesman selling you fish, he has to be able to support his income. And it's really, last week we had a woman named
I
Nicole.
do think it is a malintention. Like I knew when I was, and I think that's the thing here. We push it down. Like the higher you become, the more you become where everything you do, you try to do with supreme integrity, then the more attuned you are when you are out of integrity. So in the beginning, let's go back to that bold statement that I did in quitting the health insurance industry where they were giving out. I mean, look, these were people who would get diagnosed with AIDS, they'd get fired from their job. So,
Mm,
and they'd lose medical coverage, right? And this was at a time when AIDS was a death sentence.
yeah.
So this was not hard for me to see that that wasn't right. That I was worried about living on the street myself or whatever. I really was really worried. I have to tell you, going to quit your job and not have, they didn't give me a severance or anything like that. It wasn't like I had even the next week's money to eat. I mean, it was a really, really hard thing to do. But I knew that there was no way I should be eating at all while I was participating in killing somebody. And I looked at it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, when you're a salesman, obviously you don't look at it that way because you don't think that you're killing somebody. But I had that experience where I went to a certified financial planner as a young single mother with a young child, and they tried to sell me into a plan that would have lost all of my money. It was like August of 2000, so it was right before the dot-com crash.
Mhm.
And they wanted to put me in Enron and Global Crossing and AOL and all of these stocks that lost, well, Enron and Global Crossing lost everything. AOL lost 80%. I would have lost everything. And that person was a salesman, and he tried to, in another way, sell me things, saying that, I wasn't earning anything in my certificate of deposit, that sort of thing. I wonder how that person could have lived with himself, because I'm sure that a lot of people lost 80%. And, of course, you can just say, oh, well, everybody did, right? And so you can kind of justify that in your own mind. And he would have, because he had 600, like the average broker has to have 600 clients. So, he might not have even remembered me the next day, but I would have remembered him if he lost all my money. And what would I have done as a single mom if I had allowed that to happen? I didn't. And that's how I started on my own journey of understanding how important it is for us to be the boss of our money and not to give away our power to a salesman.
So, do you think that by shifting, so you took a huge step by listening to your integrity and your heart and what you knew was right.
Yeah.
That's a really big deal. And to your point, that was, you made a very scary decision that I don't know.
Scary.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people would have the courage to do that. With that said, I wonder if it feels to you, by staying in deep integrity, how much that then opened the door to the life that you've lived, that you're living now. I
Oh,
mean,
I think you said two very important things. The first thing is that your results are always in direct proportion to how much effort you put into something.
mhm,
So like, when I wanted to become a classical pianist, I practiced classical piano an hour every single day. And so I got to the point where I was pretty good at playing classical piano, right? But if I hadn't done anything or practiced, 10 minutes a day, then I would have never gotten to that point. So the universe rushed in to support me. So absolutely. And every time I've made a bold move like that, the universe rushes in to support me. The second thing is that, again, you don't have to be, if you're that brave where you just say, okay, I'm not doing it a day more. I stop right here, right now. The universe will find a way to rush in and support you in ways that are beyond your ability to envision before you do it.
mhm,
But if you are not, let's say you're the breadwinner of the household, and you feel like that's just not something you can do to your entire family, you can still start pointing yourself in the right direction. You can say, okay, I'm not ready to quit right at this moment, but I see that this is out of integrity with the good that I want to create in the world. And so I'm going to find a way to bring this into integrity. And that simple process of curiosity and of pointing yourself in the right direction and walking towards something, towards a goal, will bring you also some sort of fruit that's unimagined and unexpected and more delicious than what you're eating right now.
so do you have any, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but do you
Sure.
have any particular stories in mind that can illustrate that for somebody?
Yeah, I do, and I won't say who this person is, but this person was involved in a church that's very much towards the law of attraction and that sort of thing. And when he first started coming to me for financial wisdom, he's been to a number of retreats and a number of my master classes. But when he first started coming, he was working at a defense contractor, and he made bombs, basically, right? And so he would say, well, I'm going to be the light within that defense contractor. I am going to, by the fact that I am light, when I walk into the defense contractor, I'm lifting the light in that room. And that's, I guess you could make a little bit of a case for that, but you are still building bombs. You claim to be a peacemaker and you're building bombs. So I did point that out on a few occasions, that was out of alignment. It just so happened that a few years later, he was up for an early retirement. He took it, and he's now called to do sustainability. He doesn't know what that looks like. but he's moving in that direction. You know, he has a very strong degree in engineering. It can easily lend itself to sustainability. And in the meantime, he's very well supported with the early retirement he took from the defense contracting. So, yeah, the universe comes in to support you. And you know, if you're out of alignment, you know, if you're selling houses right now to people that can afford them, and you know that that's going to be a problem for them, instead of doing that, maybe you can find another niche for yourself. You know, I don't know what that looks like, but what I can say is that you know when something's out of alignment. And by honoring it and not burying it, because if you bury it, then you're numbing yourself, and you really are numbing yourself to what the world needs. And if you really are calling yourself a peacemaker or a light giver, and you've shoved down a lot of darkness, that's not true.
Right. So, so you're reminding me, one, that we also need each other, and we need, when we make that stance to move towards being in higher degree of integrity, that we need to find people that can support us and hold our hands, because it is scary. And I'm just seeing now, there's a comment from someone who's watching, and she says, "I didn't whistleblow, but I worked in a law firm that did collections for homeowners associations and community management companies, and none of them had any qualms bringing suit against and making elderly people homeless. It was the most depressing job I've ever had, and the bad part was, or is, that they had the legal system behind them."
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting comment, because you just begin to see how many layers
Yeah.
we get to work to change, we'll say.
Yeah. Yes. And I think what I love about this, and thank you for that beautiful comment, is that, again, you know, legal doesn't mean morally right. You know what I mean? Like it, and there's a case to be made for that. You might say, okay, well, I'm not necessarily going to change that law, but I'm not going to support it by working for it. The other thing too is, I think that this opens up the opportunity for us to have a discussion about another aspect of the predatory economy, and this, especially as it relates to elders. So 80% of us are exposed to financial scams, not just, you know, what we've talked about more is that we're sold, everything we buy in life to us is sold to us. And by having a level of skepticism about that is important, because we're the boss of our money. We have to know where whatever it is that we're buying fits into our budget, you know? And I would say, once we stop making everybody else rich at our own expense and learn how to provide for our own future, live a richer life, etc., we're going to have more money to work with there, which is going to be really good. 40% of us, okay, so 80% of us, almost everybody, is exposed to financial scams. 40% of us don't even know the red flags. And about 16% of us lose a significant amount of money. And this is highly concentrated in older people. So we really have to be very careful. Like the truth of the matter is, as we near retirement, we should be downsizing. But like if we lived in Europe or someplace where they have a long legacy of people transferring wealth, and look, Europe has even higher taxes than we do here, but they know how to transfer wealth without paying those taxes. Here, we're not as good about that. We don't have that same level of financial literacy across the generations. But if we were considering, you know what, I better look out for my parents and make sure that they're not being exposed to financial scams, because they're more likely to be targeted and they're more likely to be taken advantage of. And, you know, maybe I should help my mom now. She's retired and she's still living in that big house. And I can see that that she can't afford it. So maybe I should help work that out for her now. Should we be renting that house out? Should we be leasing that house? Should I change with her? Should I buy the house and put her in the smaller place that at my starter home? You know, so again, it's been very traditional that families don't talk about money, and they'll kind of leave each generation to solve it for themselves. There are ways that our teens could be prepped to get a better education for half the cost. This is something that should be part of the family dialogue when they're tweens, you know, in middle school. It should just be the way life is. And caring for grandma and grandpa and making sure that they're okay and that they're not going to be tossed out. I think that's a better plan than making it, illegal to ever evict somebody. Like, why can't we have more families thinking about these things too?
So you mentioned red flags. So I'm going to put like a bit of a pause here, come back to the red flags, because I want to then just go back to, okay, so you've defined what a predatory economy is.
Yeah.
In oversimplification terms, and please be sure that I'm getting this correctly.
Yeah.
Uh, where the whole mentality of anybody in business is trying to sell you something and basically take advantage of you or exploit you and give you something maybe that you don't even want.
No, I can't agree with it put that way, because if that's the way people thought about it, they wouldn't do it. So they don't think of it that way.
Okay.
But what they do think, like, the waxing person who told me I should wax my nose for healthcare benefits, it's actually probably very unhealthy for you, but she doesn't know that, right?
Right.
So what she's thinking of is, oh, I'm supposed to sell something else, and Natalie doesn't have any hair that I see. I'm a white girl with peach fuzz. There's not a lot of hair there. So I'll get the hair out of her nose. So I don't think people are thinking nefariously. They're not thinking I'm harming you.
Right.
Like that, even that broker that was hard selling me, he was telling me how stupid I was in the beginning, how pretty I was, how smart I was. Then when I was resistant to his wooing, he began telling me how stupid I was to try to put himself as the expert. Oh, you wouldn't operate on yourself, and here you're trying to operate on your own financial plan, and you don't even, I didn't know he was a salesman at the time. I just knew that what he said did not make sense to me. But, I was one of 600 people, 600 clients. Would he have even thought about me tomorrow? No.
Mhm.
Would he have even known if I had disappeared in the woodwork and become homeless as a result of his sales tactics that forced me to take all of everything I had, put it under his care, and he lost it all? Would he have even thought about that? No, I don't think he would have. I don't think he was in the industry beyond 2 years, because the losses were so devastating. I think he would have lost most of his clients, but I don't think that he would have thought of us and thought, oh, I feel so badly that poor single mom. I don't think he would have thought of me.
So in understanding predatory economy, I guess more what I'm wondering then, is it more a way of defining how the system works in a way, sort of, I don't want to say that it's bigger, because that then disempowers people, right, to be
Yeah.
able to change it, right? So
I think I think what we need to do when we think about a predatory economy is again, what I encourage people to do is this, is to have healthy skepticism, to understand that probably everywhere you go, if someone's going to sell you anything, there is a very high likelihood that they will make more money or be put in better light by their boss if they sell you more than you came to buy.
got it. Okay.
And I don't think that, and I think that what we all need to do, I mean, I know people, a Shakespearean actor, one of the most talented ones I know, hates selling annuities, sells them because they pay him a 7% commission. I know a very spiritual person who sold an 80-year-old woman REITs. All of them had been cash negative for over 3 years. In other words, very high risk. He sold them to her as very safe.
So, I'm sorry, what was it that he sold again? Reef?
It's a REIT. It's called a real estate investment trust. So it's a stock. He said that she was actually going to be purchasing real estate. He said it was safe. He didn't tell her that these companies, she wasn't purchasing real estate. She was purchasing stock in a company that owned real estate. But those companies that he purchased for her on her behalf as a broker, they were all cash negative. In other words, they were losing money for 3 years. That means they're very high risk. Why were they willing to pay her 8% a year? Because nobody else would loan them that kind of money, because they were cash negative for 3 years. They didn't give her any of this information. And the reason is the broker made 8% commission on it. So he sold her, $300,000 worth of paper that he said was safe, which wasn't safe. and he made, over $22,000 by doing that.
Mm, wow.
And
Okay,
she's an 80-year-old woman, and that was all she had.
so let's go back to red flags for a minute now,
Yeah.
because one of the
That's
things.
one, by the way.
Okay.
That's a red flag. If someone says to you that they're going to give you any kind of investment that is going to make an 8% return, anything about, like, the safe return right now is about 0.5%. So if
Mm,
they say they're going to give you something that's over 3%, it's risky. If
mm,
it's over 5%, it's very risky in today's world.
mm,
That's a red flag. And they can't call it safe and be really in integrity.
mm, mhm,
So that's number one. Also, it's really hard in some cases. Like that woman said, oh, well, he wasn't paid commission. I didn't pay him commission. So, she had asked, am I paying you commission? Well, she wasn't. He was earning commission from the companies that he was selling the product for.
mm, mm,
So, it's learning how to ask the right questions. It's not just believing something that comes in, but really learning how to ask the right questions. And again, that's part of what I say life math is that we all need this information, and it's not hard. That's why I call it the ABCs of money that we all should have received in high school. It's not hard. And once you get it, it just becomes the way life is. It's kind of like learning your multiplication tables or learning ABCs so you can learn how to read. It's that easy.
Is life math, you've used this term before. Is it this another
It's something I call, yeah. I've
based?
never heard it before. I called it life math, but yes.
Right on. So, okay. And so if people want to learn more life math skills, obviously, then they can find information in your ABCs of Money book, or Put Your Money Where Your Heart Is as well, or
The
else.
gratitude game. But I will say this is the 9th year of the current bull market. And a lot of people read things and don't do them. A lot of people go to retreats and don't do them. So what I'm telling you is, for most people, you should make it a priority to come to my retreat. And I'm not just saying that so I can sell it to you. I'm just saying that people that used these strategies earned gains in the last recession.
Mhm,
People that didn't lost more than half. People that learn these strategies save thousands of dollars every year in their annual budget. People who don't learn these strategies are, a lot of them are accumulating debt, trying to make ends meet.
mhm,
So it's really life transformational.
mhm,
We have lots of testimonials. I would say about 40% of people come back and bring someone with them.
mhm,
And the only regret that I've ever heard is and this one comes up over and over again, is people wish they'd done it sooner. So yeah, you can get the information in my books, but if you want to make sure that you implement it before the next downturn, if you
mhm.
want to make sure you implement it and start saving thousands of dollars every year now, then come to a retreat, make it a priority. Kind of like me quitting the job that was killing people with AIDS. Your results are always in direct alignment with how much effort you put into it. So
Mhm.
if you want to change your life, put a lot of effort into it.
Right, right. So, for the sake of transparency here,
Yeah.
how you got here to us through Charter for Compassion was through Sandy Hart, with the director of the
Thank you, Sandy.
Preditor. And through her, and this is to the point of testimonials, a very, very good friend of hers who is a high-level media expert,
Yes.
really well respected, took a course with you and was just blown away. And I think in the middle, or maybe even after the first couple of hours of it, called Sandy and said, "Oh my gosh, you have to do this work." And so I say that just so people, we're be transparent, but we're
Yeah.
not. This is.
She's now a volunteer, by the way. You have to attend 2 retreats before you can be a volunteer. So she's attended 3 retreats, 2 as an attendee and 1 as a volunteer. And she's coming to my one in October.
Wow, that's awesome. And I love, am I correct on the title of it? Financial Empowerment and Healing? Did I get it?
Yeah, yeah. So it's our Old West Fund. And then what's kind of cool too is that they have natural hot mineral springs down there. So we really are talking about healing when we go
Yes.
there. And that's something that I try to do. And I think it's important too. And I think it it's funny because it actually relates directly to compassion, is having compassion for yourself. Like what I do in my retreats is, first of all, they're hands-on so that you're doing it, not just hearing it, you're actually doing it. But we have a lot of fun in it because I think it's important for us to touch our pleasure points as we do things. So when we're thinking about becoming more passionate, more peace-giving, all of these things that we want to do in the goals that you have for the Charter of Compassion, as we experience pleasure doing them, then it actually makes it easier to do them. So, you might think, oh, well, when Natalie quit the job and she had to sleep on the couch, that might not have been very much fun. It was exactly the opposite. I felt like I had been freed from a yoke, like I was an ox that was pulling this giant plow behind me in this, in this field, and I felt like I had been freed. And within a few weeks, I got a job that I loved. And I had so much fun with the woman that shared her couch with me, and we cooked. So it's very interesting how that goes. So I will say that when you do the right thing, that's part of the magic of it, is that you can already guarantee that doing the right thing is going to give you a little bit of pleasure because you've removed a burr in your side that's been bothering you.
It's so interesting you're talking about this because, again, for the sake of transparency, I've been watching on the 2 times that I've had the honor, the opportunity to sit and talk with you. I've watched my own wounds around money start to surface, and I'm like, wow. So one, I want to just acknowledge that I think you really are on to a very deep truth around healing wounds around money. Because we're so, to this point of a deficit model, we have so much fear and shame, and it's things that are not even talked about that just there. And then to come up, and I love the idea that you're working with hot springs and healing with it, because there's, what's the phrase, and even to the point of your guy working in the defense thing, you bring light into it, and that illuminates the entire room, so there's less darkness. So that's a pretty exquisite, I like how you're pairing healing and pleasure with it, because then it goes from being scary to, oh, this is fun and I feel good,
It's a lot of fun. I have to tell you, empowerment is fun. And that's what's really kind of cool about this is in the course of our conversation, we have, it's come up a couple times where you said, fear-based, fear-based, fear-based. And that's part of your Charter for Compassion thing, is to move out of fear into a response and an action that is based out of compassion. So whenever we have these wounds in our own self, in our own life, these areas of our life that are not consistent with what real compassion and peace are all about, as we heal those, that's where it begins. It's kind of like what we went back to. Instead of thinking like, oh, they are out there trying to be mean to us and to harm us, and I better help my neighbor. It's really not that way. In fact, I hope, how much time do we have left?
We've got about 10 minutes. We can go over a little bit, and then we can also continue it in the after party, which is the second platform. So,
well, what I was going to say is that, I was reading something about where Plato had said that this is something that all humans can easily, a trap we can all fall into. We can all fall into this kind of insatiable lust for eating well, or providing for our family, or wanting to be rich. And the truth is, yes, we want to have a rich life. We want to live a rich life, but very seldom is that exactly associated with just earning more money. It definitely can be associated with, it can be. Look, there's nothing wrong with money. The love of money, a lot wrong with that, because that is what we're talking about here. The love of money that would allow me to place my need for eating that night over the person who just got the AIDS diagnosis, losing his job. That's not right. That's where it becomes love of money instead of just something. I think money at its core is actually a magic token of gratitude. But when we are in love with money and kind of like Ebenezer Scrooge about it, then we are making choices in our life, and they can be fear-based, but they're still a little bit nefarious. Now, again, I don't encourage us to think of it as everybody's out there trying to screw everybody. I don't think that's what people do, because if they really thought about it on that level, then then they would have to kind of be disgusted with themselves. And most of us want ourselves to be the hero of our own story. So we bury the things that we know are a little bit unseemly. And that's what's happened, I think, more, is that we do have an economy that is built around commerce, that is built around merchants, that is built around sales. And in order for us to not be completely submerged in that, we have to find ways in our own personal lives. It's going to be very difficult to, all of a sudden go to a compassion-based economy, but each one of us figuring out that for ourselves is part of the solution.
Got it. So one of the things that we mentioned that we would get into a little bit, and I do want to just sort of recapsulize, I guess,
Yeah.
are the 3 steps to protect yourself from a predatory economy: how not to be a victim, how not to be a predator, and how not to be a beneficiary. And I feel like you touched on all of those topics just by looking at the role of integrity, and staying in integrity, and asking intelligent questions. But I feel like there's more too. So do you want to add to any one
Yeah.
of?
Yeah, because definitely the number 3. So say them one more time, because number 3 is the one I think we really haven't gotten into.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one was how not to be a victim.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that. How not to be a predator.
Yep.
We touched on that. And then how not to be a beneficiary. And I think that is a really important one too, because if
Yeah.
you're investing, how not? What was the other phrase that we were talking about? Don't profit from what you're picketing.
Yes, definitely. Don't profit from what you're picketing. But so we did talk about this already in terms of earned income. So you can profit from a predatory economy by being that person who sells the real estate investment trusts, risky real estate investment trusts, to a retired woman as safe.
Mhm.
So that's definitely benefiting from a predatory economy and actually being a bit of a predator yourself. But also, what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of people don't want to look at their investments, or they don't want to think that they're invested. If you pay taxes, if you have life insurance, if you have an annuity, if you have a 401k, if you have an IRA, you are invested. Now, a lot of people don't realize that they are actually profiting from the very companies they picket, as I told you, in our pre-call to kind of talk about this. So learning how to invest better doesn't just mean that you can make more money or you can earn gains when everybody else is losing half. It also means that you can as I said in my first book, put your money where your heart is and profit. So the ideal thing here is that honestly, if all of us decided to stop driving gas guzzlers and start driving electric cars, then we wouldn't have to picket as much ExxonMobil and all of these oil and gas companies. If we decided to have more energy efficiency in our homes, then we wouldn't need as much fracking. So there's a lot of things that we can do as a consumer and as an investor that would shift our lives way faster even than picketing. So that's another reason why I encourage you. Wisdom is really the cure, because we participate in what's going on in the status quo, in the things that we don't want to see in the world, by profiting from them either directly in earned income or indirectly in passive income. And if we were to purchase differently, earn income differently, and earn passive income differently in things that we really believe benefit the world, then the world will shift faster than anything we could possibly do.
Oh, that's a very, very, very important piece of it. Yeah. So we have about 6 minutes left, and I'm wondering if there's anything more, like if you could give people a takeaway, aside from the most obvious, which is learn more about your work and your wisdom through your books and through your trainings. What would the one takeaway be?
I think I probably have said this before, but it's one of my things that I say the most. Every cent you own and every moment you spend is always an investment. Always. So you always want to, you just, like I said, you can get to the point where every moment you can live in integrity. And it doesn't require like extra time meditating. Like I was in nature here in Central Park the other day, and I felt like it was the best form of meditation to be out there listening to the birds singing and the dogs playing off leash and the kids laughing. That to me was a beautiful meditation. But I just mean to say is that it's not extra time, it's not extra money. When you have wisdom working on your side, when you set up your life right, it's less time, it's less money, it's less stress, it's more fun, it's everything that you want. So getting into integrity, it feels scary, but the truth is, if we really are honest with ourselves, a lot of people are living in fear right now, especially around money. And that is not the most important thing in the world. But since it is the thing that we do most in life, is go out, most of our day is going to be spent earning a living. That's a lot of time doing something. So if we can find a way to have all those things be in alignment, and that 8 hours that we're out there spending in the world, it's kind of like, thinking about that person I told you that worked at the defense contractor. Right. Yeah, you can justify it a little bit that you're lighting up the room, but you can't really justify it if you just helped to build the bomb that killed 900 people in Syria.
Right. Well, you remind me, a good friend of mine who's a therapist talks about really when you understand that money is also a reflection of love, what and where and how you work with it suddenly begins to change. And in just even thinking, oh, this currency, whether it's through the plastic debit card or I have paper or coin money in my hands, it's a reflection of my hard work. It's a reflection of the choices that I make. And it's a reflection of where I spend my time and how I live. And that's so vital and valuable. And when put it in the context of this is my heart too. This is love. This is what I do to take care of my family. This is what I do to take care of my animals. This is what I give to charity. When you see it in the context of love, suddenly it's a little bit of a different relationship with it too. And when I reflect on your story, I mean, it keeps going through my mind, wow, I didn't know you were a singer-songwriter. And so, initially. And so, what do we do when we sing and we songwrite? We're writing a script of a story we're telling, and singing it is this expression of our voice. And that seems to be really foundational when people want to begin to make this shift to moving into integrity. And how do we live with our money and all of this? Having your voice reflect your heart, your values, and then how to use it wisely to ask questions and to challenge the status quo, and then to dig deeper. And in that space of having the courage to do that, much like your personal story of being a whistleblower, you also hopefully invite at least someone to have a seed planted that maybe there's another way. And that is a really, really powerful message. And so I just want to thank you for who you are, for the path that you've taken, and the tremendous courage it's taken to take your voice and put it out in the world and help other people have that voice and help make a shift, because that's just so, so powerful.
Yeah, we can all do this. We can all do it. And the more we do it, the easier it becomes.
You remind me, yesterday evening, I had a conversation with a man, Dr. David Loy, and he has written a number of books around consciousness and human evolution and all of these things. And he said to me, and you reminded me this also with Life Math, the Heart Math Institute, which actually maybe you're familiar with. They look at how we're connected through our hearts and where our hearts sync up. And he said that we receive information actually first in our heart. I don't know how they've managed to measure this, but that we receive information in our heart first, and then there's a 4-second gap between our heart receiving it and our brain processing it. And that's really interesting too when it comes to money too. If we can allow ourselves to shift into stay in our heart and allow that 4-second gap to be a pause where maybe we take a breath, or to your point, notice the animals and the trees around us and say, is this so? Is my fear, is my whatever it is around money, is this real, or can I shift it and bring it back?
What I will say is I really think a lot of us need a lot more brain training.
Right.
So because the disconnect here, I think we are feeling it with our heart, and then we're going out into the world and the world is scaring the hell out of us, and we don't have the brain training to be able to find a different solution. There
Right.
are many better choices to be made in regards to our budgets and our investing. And you are invested and you do have a budget. So getting the brain training so that there is a good interplay between heart and brain activity.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I would just like to add one last thing, and I know we're probably going to have another conversation in another venue, but I believe that money is a magic token of gratitude.
Yeah, I love that phrase.
Yeah. So, and also that time and talent are magic tokens of gratitude. Money is not the only magic token of gratitude that you can give.
Mm-hmm.
So I do encourage you to think of it when you work at something and you receive money, that is as a result, that is a magic token of gratitude coming to you. So if you're doing something that you don't actually believe is adding light to the world, then that's out of congruency there, right? You're receiving a magic token of gratitude that's something you don't think is really worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's putting you out of alignment in your own heart. Same thing, when it's outgoing. Like you can't be super happy about, I couldn't, when I went to the gas station to fill up during the BP oil spill, I couldn't consider paying money for oil as a magic token of gratitude. Okay, so I acknowledged that. Okay, that's out of alignment. The next Earth Day, I decided to go a week without driving my car and see if I could do it. Guess what? I've been in New York now for over 6 weeks, and I have not been in a car once. I have not used one speck of gasoline. So, I am trying to become in greater integrity there. I always tell people I want my next car to be a bike. So, I just think that I'm not 100% there. I'm farther up the path. And every time that I notice that, and so that idea of the magic token of gratitude helps me to notice when things are out of alignment.
I
You
love
know?
that. That's fabulous. All right. Well, we're a couple minutes over, but I wanted you to complete that thought, which is
Thank
such
you.
a beautiful way for us to end. And once again, I want to thank you for being with us and thank everyone who's on the call or watching this after the fact. And we will see you all again next week, actually, with Mark Silver, and talking about maintaining the heart of your business for small business owners or independent contractors who are looking to stay in integrity with values with their money and their businesses. So everyone else who's here with us now, if you want to join us in the chat box, you will see the link to our after party. And thank you again for being here with us. And thank you, Natalie. We'll see you in the after party. Bye.
Sounds good. Bye.